Hi there, I'm Dr. Gail, and this is Dr. Gail GoodReads. And today, the book that we have decided to talk about is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. This was written in 1925, so it's almost 100 years old. And it is remarkable how it still is a very pertinent story, even today. So, most of us have come across this book and this story either in a movie or because we had to read it when we were in high school, which was certainly my case. And at the time, being a teenager, I didn't quite understand the relevance of the story. So our book club has decided to give it another try. And I'm glad we did, because this was really one of the most celebrated books and one of the most important books considered by many other authors to have a huge impact in reflecting the society that we created by being a capitalistic, democratic country. At that time, in 1925, there were a lot of changes taking place. The middle class was emerging. Automobile was becoming a method of transportation, and cities were starting to build upwards, which is interesting because up until that time, most cities and villages were dominated, at least on the skyline, by the church spire, which of course represents morality, religious affiliations, and essentially humility, man's humility to a greater God. But as the cities became bigger and bigger and centers of commerce, especially New York City, skyscrapers took over the skyline, and the dominant buildings were the skyscrapers of commerce. So this was a new morality for people. They were now driven by money, and there was no apparent consequence from changing the prior humility to a greater God and the worship of money. This is basically the subject of the book and the story. The story is about a young man who is self-made, and in America, anybody can become rich, and that's what he does. He is very intent on impressing his young lover that he had met several years ago, and he knows that she is from old money, and he amasses a huge fortune, not legally, in an illegal way, but at that time, again, there was no consequence for a lot of illegal actions, especially during the time of Prohibition, when people were bootlegging and making fortunes on that. It's an interesting book. The prose is excellent. The words jump out of the pages at us as we read, and I have a much greater appreciation for it, for the writing of F. Scott Fitzgerald than I did when I first picked it up many years ago. This is one of the rare instances where a book is complemented by the movie. Usually the book is better or the movie is better, but in this instance, I not only read the book, but watched the movie that stars Leonardo DiCaprio, and found that the movie, the script, explained a lot of places in the book that were left a little nebulous. For instance, when one of the characters, Daisy, goes into Gatsby's house and comes into contact with hundreds of shirts that he has. And for some unknown reason, she goes from being completely incredulous at the enormity of this material collection to starting to cry and sob. That was never really quite explained to me in the novel. So I'm glad that I saw the movie, because they did explain that there's a lot of different ways to interpret it, but one explanation is that she became sad because she knew that in spite of the material goods, she was still not going to be available to Gatsby because she was already married. This is a book that I would definitely recommend. Because there are some nebulous parts in the book, I'm glad that I saw the movie and that it complemented what I was reading. I thought it was very pertinent to today. I would definitely give it a good recommendation, and at least a 9 out of 10. So I hope you do pick this book up. I certainly enjoyed it, and we will see you next time.